Well, hey there. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me here today. Appreciate having you here. Well, I wanted to do this little video for you about my first UFO sighting. This is something that I've mentioned from time to time in some of my YouTube videos here, and I know some of you have been, curious about what this was. I've never really talked about it that thoroughly. But this is sort of what got me going in this whole direction a long time ago. This happened in the mid-1970s. I was with my mom, who was a bird watcher. We lived in New York, and she decided we were going to take a trip to the Everglades in Florida to look at birds. And we were out there one evening in the Everglades. No one else was around. And, we both had binoculars and everything. And I saw something that at first I thought was the moon because it was big and bright and it was right overhead. And I looked up at it and I said, there was something about it which was different. It was kind of a green, goldish color. And I thought, oh, that's really weird. So I said, hey, Mom, look at the moon. Now, the moon actually happened to be way over there on the horizon. So she looked over at it and said, okay, yeah, big deal, And I said, no, Mom, look at the moon. And she said, no, the moon's over there. I said, no, what's that? We both looked up again. And now this is an object. It's very hard to describe what it looked like because it didn't fit any categories I had in my head at the time. It was kind of like a green cloud with a golden rim because it was perfectly circular. And so it sort of looked like an amorphous thing, not necessarily an object. But when we both looked at our binoculars, there was this pattern of dots in it that looked just like a Z. Now, they weren't lights. They were kind of like structures on the bottom of something. And it was just sitting there hovering, maybe, about as high as the clouds would be. And when we both started looking at it with our binoculars, it started to move. And it moved into a cloud. And that was also really weird. So it sort of had characteristics of something that wasn't structured, like cloud-like. But it moved coherently like an object and had this pattern of dots at the bottom that looked solid. So it was something between solid and amorphous, and it didn't really fit. And I remember the feeling at the time was just really weird. It didn't seem like it belonged in our reality. That's the only way I could put it. It just didn't seem like it fit to my, 12, 13-year-old mind. It just seemed really weird. And I drew a picture of it later on so I would remember it. I haven't been able to find the picture again, but I remember exactly what the picture looked like because I found it again a couple of years later and looked at it again. We both went to a ranger talk in Everglades National Park a little bit later, and all the power had gone out, synchronistically enough. And the people we sat next to had seen it too, but they had seen it kind of coming out of a cloud when it sort of emerged. A number of people must have seen it because it just didn't look like it fit. Now, many years later, I came across this book. Above Top Secret, by Timothy Good, the Worldwide UFO Cover-Up. This is still a great book, one of the best of all time about UFOs. Came out in 1998, which would have been when I was at the University of Arizona in graduate school. So I probably picked it up there, or one of the places where I went to graduate school could have also been Washington State University. Any case, when I saw this photo on the cover, I had never seen anything that looked like this object that my mom and I had seen in the sky. When I saw this object on the cover of Timothy Good's book, that was what the feeling was like. It didn't look like a structured craft like this, but it had that feeling of something ordinary in the background, clouds, and something in the foreground which didn't quite fit in our reality. And so when I saw this, I said, hey, that's sort of the feeling of what we saw that day. And now back at that time in the 70s, the only book I'd really read about UFOs, I think I read John Keel's The Mothman Prophecies. And I think he had another book too that I had looked at about UFOs, but I didn't know very much about the subject. I mean, hey, I was a teenager back in the 1970s, and I really didn't follow up on it very much years later. I mean, I remember teachers in high school saying that there wasn't much to the UFO subject. I mean, Project Blue Book had looked at it and everything. And I really didn't get interested in the subject again until, as you know, I got out of graduate school and took a class in remote viewing in 1996. So it's kind of a long time in between. But I can say that left a really strong impression on me as a teenager. What are these objects? And I came across the Timothy Good book again in the late 80s and say, well, what are these things? You know, they don't fit. Is it something that is part of our society that we don't know about, something we forgot about, another civilization, extraterrestrial visitors, something from within the earth? Well, I guess we're all going to find out. I can't think of a more important subject for society to think about and discuss openly, which has not happened to this point, as you're aware. But we are moving in that direction, and I'm encouraged by what we see around us right now, which is that people are asking questions of the government. The government is starting to talk about it, whatever they might know about what these things are, and perhaps we will find out what these objects are. I'm sure in the meantime, we will unturn a lot of stones within our own society and discover a lot of things on our way to finding out what the significance of this mystery is. So that's my UFO sighting. I've had other ones since then, but that was the main one that sort of got me going way back, in the mid 1970s, not very long after Project Blue Book had allegedly shut down. And one more thing I should add is that when we went to the ranger talk, after the talk, we went up to the ranger and said, hey, we saw a UFO. And she said, oh, those things. She just totally dismissed it. She just wouldn't even talk to us about it. And that, in my little mind back then, I was like, well, why don't you want to talk about it? So here we are, we're talking about it again. And I hope, in the near future, we will be finding out more about this fascinating subject. So stay tuned. We'll talk to you later. Take care for now, and bye.